Hello, my gentle listeners. This is Sex Coach Lauren, and welcome back to another episode of Desire Dialogues. I am really excited to introduce you to our special guest today. We have Sarzana Hasin Safar. She's a trauma informed life coach and the host of The Daughter with Daddy Issues, a podcast where she delves into father child relational dynamics as well as those profound impacts that has on our lives, with a focus on growing up with abuse, mental health, and the journey of healing. Sarzana creates a compassionate and safe space for exploring and reclaiming our lived experiences and stories. So, she recently completed a professional trauma certificate from Wilfrid Laurier University as she deepened her knowledge of trauma recovery in regards to nervous system regulation, which is super big. Welcome, Sarzana. Great to
Thank
talk to you
you.
today.
Very, very honored to be here. Thank you so much, Lauren, for having me. And this is so exciting. I went over, the episodes that you have been doing and the work you have been doing, and I just want to thank you for the work that you do. It is very, very important.
Oh, goodness gracious. Thank you. So let's get into the juicy questions because I love asking this. Everybody has a different background. So I love to know. We're going to ask a few questions and then we're going to get into the good stuff, which is our
hmm
juicy component for today's episode. My first question, though, that I love to ask everyone, what was sex ed like for you when you grew up?
Terrible,
Oh, how
terrible,
so?
terrible. Or I would like to say non-existent. And
Okay.
I say that, first of all, as a person of color, um, also as an immigrant. I grew up in Southeast Asia. I grew up in Dhaka, Bangladesh, like far, far, far away. I came to Canada when I was 18. And, I really like that you asked me that question because I'm sure there are many listeners of yours, with similar backgrounds or with similar lived experiences where, you know, talking about sex was such a taboo. Like, we don't talk about it. It's like hush, hush, hush. But I think when I say it was terrible for me, I guess what I wanted to, imply the fact that personally, as someone who grew up with adverse childhood experiences, for me, I learned about sex or sexuality not in a guided, direct way, but my knowledge came from the exposure, the unhealthy exposure between dialogues among adults, especially when you grow up with like abuse, like you start to understand, like you can start to hear things about sex, like when your parents are yelling at each other, or when hear, from other people, or when you have a father who had engaged in infidelity, or, I'm sure there are many people who grew up with parents who weren't loyal to each other, faithful to each other. And so that was my sex ed, like my education was through learning about the infidelity of my father.
Wow. And I get a different answer from everybody else, and it's such a layered topic.
hmm
Um, it's such a layered topic. And let's
hmm
get into if you're if you're ready, I
hmm
really want to get into this beautiful component that has such a strong impact on our relationships, the father wound. Would you be open to
hmm
sharing with our listeners more about this? It's something you're very passionate about.
Yeah, absolutely. So, um, I was the daddy's little girl. Um, I have a half brother now who is 3 years old. But growing up, I grew up as an only child. I grew up as a daddy's little girl. I didn't grow up with somebody else to share my parents' attention or love. So I I was in a way put on a pedestal by my father when I was a little child. And I had the perfect family, doting parents, lots of attention, completely spoiled in so many ways. But then, but then my father sadly had fallen into alcoholism, had fallen into infidelity, and very soon he became very physically abusive towards my mom. And eventually he became physically abusive towards me as well. And for me, I think that contrast of having the most loving father in the world to literally having a monster in the house had taken a huge psychological toll on me that I had not really realized until much, much later. And for me, when it comes to relationships specifically, like, when we talk about relationships, romantic relationships, um, I was going from one relationship to another pretty quickly. And
Hmm.
deep down, I always craved for that male embrace. I don't want to say I crave for the male attention. It wasn't necessarily attention seeking. It was more like I craved for that love. I craved for that sense of being protected, being adored, like someone to give me that sense that, I care for you, I adore you. I crave that so much. And, a lot of it was very subconscious. And this was also making me very prone towards unhealthy relationships or staying in unhealthy relationships longer than I should have been because
Yeah.
we get attached and we don't want to let go of this love that we found.
Mm.
Will anybody love me again? And over the years, also for me, in terms of my own mental health, when it comes to my own self-esteem, my relational dynamics, and, coming down to the nervous system, recognizing how my nervous system had been shot and experiencing burnout really quickly, especially when you have like traumatic childhood experiences. So all of that, I was married and then I went through a divorce. And then I got married again and I went through a second divorce. And during that time, I really had to sit down and wonder, you know, what role did I play? And what role is my unresolved childhood trauma playing over here? And that is when I literally dived into finding out what are my daddy issues? What are my father wounds? How has my relationship with my father or my childhood experiences, like, how did that affect me? And this is not to put the blame or onus on my father completely, but to look at it in an objective way because, I was a child when things happened. And how did that shape me as an adult? So, I think I think father wounds and how father wounds affect our relationships, not just romantic but professional, how it affects our relationship with ourselves, relationship with sex, how it affects our self-esteem, how it affects behaviors. A lot of it really, really, really it is something that I personally feel we need to talk about more and give each other more support because it is still heavily stigmatized in many ways. Oh, she has daddy issues. Oh, a woman with daddy issues is like so promiscuous. Like, she sleeps around. Like, there is this stereotypical idea about women with daddy issues. So, yeah.
And they're not, and excuse me, yeah, they're not necessarily true. It goes so much
Yeah,
deeper than
yeah,
that. And
yeah,
it reaches into more than just romantic relationships.
yeah.
From what I've seen in my clients with father wounds, when you brought it up to me, I didn't even really think about it as a father wound. I've heard of sister wounds before, which you can be wounded by a really close female friend, not necessarily a
Mhm.
sister. But then I really, as soon as we talked about it, I dived right in. And I noticed with those father wounds, you can find yourselves like you mentioned, getting into unhealthy and unsatisfying relationships and staying there, but also
Mhm.
like relationship hopping.
Mhm.
And in the context of work, you can find yourself overgiving,
Mhm.
overdoing, and having a
Mhm.
sense of perfectionism as well.
Mhm. Mhm.
I've also seen a lot of, besides the mental health issues with anxiety and depression, it's this like the need for control, especially if
Mhm.
the father was domineering when he was present or not
Mhm.
present, just domineering. And
Mhm.
they're not all going to be the same symptoms. I actually, I looked up as well the spiritual meaning of the father wound,
Mhm.
and the effect of a father wound is low self-esteem, deep
Mhm.
emotional pain, and a
Mhm.
performance orientation that makes us doers
Mhm.
rather than beings.
Mhm.
Yes.
You hit the nail on the dot
And
there.
and it's like I didn't realize all of these things that it was without the name. And now it's linked together. And I do understand quite a bit more, which I'm really grateful for you to. It's the
No,
father
thank you.
wound is about experiencing grief and loss. And it is that yearning to feel
Mhm.
love. But
Mhm.
instead, I've found some people feel a little bit absent until they learn to love themselves without a new father figure in a way. Does that resonate at
Yeah.
all?
Yeah, especially when you said without a new father figure, right? And, when it comes to the nervous system regulation or even the emotional regulation, we learn self-regulation through our parents, through our caregivers. And so, as an adult, being a being, having to learn co-regulation without someone helping you through it, it is tough. And I think that is when the work that you're doing, coaches, therapy, all of that comes into play and it's very helpful. But it's also important to find the right individual who would understand what would help you co-regulate. I might think this will help you co-regulate, but it may not. Maybe you need a hug. Maybe you need some space. Maybe you need to stand like 6 feet away from you or anything. I wouldn't know, right? So it like you said, it varies from person to person to person to person. Um, Sometimes, and because we are on a very juicy podcast, sex can be very co-regulating,
Yes, it
that
is. Yes.
touch. It is. And different people have different love languages as well.
I
But
love the love languages. Oh my gosh. It's so spot stinking on. It is.
Mhm.
May I ask your love language? What's
Yes, of
yours?
course. Well, well,
Secondary and primary. Yes, you
of
know that.
course, primary would be words of affirmation.
I
Uh,
could tell by your
could
responses when
you?
I could, so I did it
No,
more.
how? Tell me how. You have to tell me how.
Just the way your face lights up. So when we
Oh,
respond, it lit you right up. I could see your love cup filling when I said nice words to you, which I genuinely meant. But when you
thank you.
realize that, you're like, wow, okay, that's it for her. So I just automatically do it. And I hope it's not manipulative, but it's just like, if this fills you up and makes you feel good, I'm gonna keep doing it because I would want to say it anyway. So I could tell words of affirmation. I love
Thank
it. Do you have the
you. Thank
secondary love
you.
language?
Physical
You're
touch, hands
fantastic.
down, physical touch, hands down.
Mm,
Like, touch me, kiss me, play with me, tease me, all of it. Physical touch, hands down. Like, I think sometimes physical touch would be primary for me and words of affirmation would be secondary. But to mention your point about, you asked if it was manipulative. And you know what? I've thought about that a lot. Like, I'm an empath and I love making people happy. And I've wondered, like, is it manipulative of me? Like, am I doing it for me? Am I doing it for other people? Like, what is it? And I've come to the realization that if you're doing that to make someone happy, I think that's actually very kind and thoughtful. Like, it's not
right?
manipulative, it's thoughtful. And then that's a
I hear
very
you.
emotionally intelligent relational skill to have. So give yourself some credit.
Thank you. And it really is like, the overgiving. Like, does that go into people
Mhm.
pleasing? And just
Mhm.
me doing something that will make you feel good, people pleaser. It's like,
Mhm.
oh, everything's so
Mhm.
aligned with trauma and responses that, like, my gosh.
Mhm.
So we'll leave that for a different day, eh? My love language is acts of service and quality time.
Wow.
So just me and you
Nice.
here lighting me up. I love it. We're just chatting and it's just me and you. No one else is in the background. So when I go out with friends, I like it to be just me and them
Yeah.
specifically. So it's not too much. I just get what I need from you right in front of you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's lovely. That's lovely.
So where were we here? Would you like to speak a little bit more on how you help your clients as a trauma informed coach?
I think the first thing would be creating a space, allowing them to share stories. I think so many of us are so suppressed in our stories, and most likely we really haven't been heard throughout our lives. Um, and for me, I think it's important to create that space where they know that it's a safe space, completely non-judgmental space. They can share however much they want. If they want to share all of it, please do. And then recognizing how those stories or those experiences affected them and impacted them. And finding out where were we in the past, how the past led to us in our present, and where we want to be in the future. And that comes down to creating that roadmap of sorts. This is how my father wounds affected me. Okay. Or this is how, my childhood affected me. This is how my relationships affected me. And sometimes, traumatic experiences is not just in our childhood. It can be in our early adult life. It can be when we were 21, 22, something traumatic happened. And, we were impacted by it. We were shaped by it. So whatever that was, and then trying to find out where we want to be and then doing little things that brings those change. Can I give a quick example if that's okay?
Please.
So this is actually from my own personal life. Um, so growing up, I had subconsciously almost absorbed this belief or developed this core belief that if I am not sexy, if I am not pleasing my man, then he will probably leave me, because that's what happened between my parents. And I had almost subconsciously, like, if daddy can leave mom or cheat on mom and literally become a mean person because, and he's, going out with other women in front of me too, I received the message that I have to be sexually pleasing. I have to be sexy. I have to be this. I have to be that. And only now in hindsight, I realized, I'm like, oh my God, I had taken up belly dancing classes. I was like, I want to get into pole dancing. I was taking like heels classes, like I have to be this sexy kitty to get that love, or to have men or my partner not leave me, right? Because then I become unattractive and then I'll end up what happened to my mom. And I don't want that, right? I don't want that. Um, and this actually led me to a relationship, or this guy that I was seeing, where I was not comfortable with a lot of things in terms of intimacy or sexual activities. I was not comfortable at all, but I couldn't bring myself to say no. I
Ah,
couldn't bring myself to say no. And the number of times when I did say no, he would get really upset. And then I would turn into the fawn response
oh yes.
and try to people
That's fun.
please. Yeah, it's very hard. And it took me some time. And as you know, trauma, father wounds can really disconnect us from our bodies and our sense of self. And it took me time up until to a point where I'm like, if I'm ever in a situation like that, and I'm feeling my body is saying no, I need to use my vocal chakra. I need to release it and actually say no and be firm at it. And if my no is not being respected, I need to say no, maybe a little louder. And I need to, like, and if my no is still not respected, what can I do to physically remove myself? And maybe sometimes I have to fall into my fight response and just be really show that I'm angry. Like, no means no, means no. And it took me some time to start rewiring that and go from like, this is uncomfortable, I'm not ready for it. And so it comes down to finding out, okay, how did those experiences affect me? Well, it took away my ability to voice my needs. When I wanted to say no, I couldn't say no. I would drop into the freeze response. And then second, being able to recognize the no in my body and in my heart, and then learning and practicing to actually vocalizing it, and then also noticing that, okay, there will be times when, even though I'm saying no, it's not respected. What do I do then? How do I show up then? Because there were times when I said no and it wasn't respected. And at one point, I would just give in. And a lot of people fall into a lot of sexual assault, even though they're saying no, because of coercive control. And it's like I said no, but he didn't respect it. He kept pushing, he kept pushing, and then sometimes, they would just give in, not because they want to, but because they just wanted to be over with. And so learning that, okay, so what can I do potentially in those scenarios? And I think when it comes to working with other people, for me, realizing how did we come to the present? What are some of the behavioral patterns we have in the present moment? How was it affected by the past? How do we want to really show up in the future? And then setting a roadmap and discussing different scenarios on how we can show up differently. That is self-protective, very self-aware, true to our values, and most importantly, true to a sense of safety, physical safety, sexual safety, emotional safety, all sorts, psychological safety, and really prioritizing safety because I'm sure like sex is only pleasurable when it's safe.
Very much so. And trauma very rarely leaves you feeling safe. So
Mm-hmm.
your fight, flight, freeze, fawn, they can
Mm-hmm.
all be a little jumbled. And if we haven't had a chance, haven't found a coach or a therapist or somebody to navigate when those responses are going to happen, sometimes we can
Mm-hmm.
re-traumatize ourselves, especially
100%.
when it's not a fuck yes in our bodies. It's,
100%.
when you're in this freeze, you can't really stick up for yourself. It's hard to say
Mm-hmm.
no. And
Mm-hmm.
with the fawn too, it's like the fawn is such a strange response, and it makes people really upset with themselves the most. 'Cause they're like,
Mm-hmm.
I was supposed to flight, I was supposed to leave. Then I found myself over giving when I was already a no and just trying to please. And it is the way that we're speaking about it, not many people would reference these fight and flight response systems. It's not usually spoken about. And really, trauma completely unrails all of those responses in a proper way to feel most authentic. And it's
Yeah.
when you create that safe space to unravel it, to look at it, it's really, really
Yeah.
powerful. Otherwise, all of these things are so subconscious and we don't
Yeah.
know. And it takes over our whole fucking lives until the
Yeah.
self awareness kicks in. And
Yeah.
it's game changing, it's life changing, but it's really scary. So when you find somebody that you can do that work with, to look at it non-judgmental with you,
Yeah.
it's really it's a gift you give yourself. So, and that's why I really am happy you came on, because you're able
Thank
to
you.
express it in a different way I would, even if we do similar work. And
Thank you.
that's, if somebody resonates with you, please guys reach out. We all have different mentors in our lives, different people to guide us, and different people are drawn to do this extremely crucial but really hard work. So I hope nobody delays, and just know you're not alone. And we're going to have more
Mhm.
conversations around these things. All right. So, a couple more
Yeah.
questions. You got time? All right, go.
Yes. Bring it on.
All right. So, when you did the jumping around, to different relationships, like 6 months here, 6 months there, did you end up having a space of time where it was just you and it was the most healing?
I did for a year. And just to kind of give you a little bit of a clarification, it never was like, it never felt like, oh, I'm done with this person or I'm bored with this person. On to the next one. It wasn't necessarily like that. It was like I'm with somebody, things didn't work out. I would do my absolute best to save the relationship, but for whatever reason, it didn't work out, and I am on my own. And with every passing day, I could sense this emptiness and hole inside me just growing and growing and growing and growing. And I would subconsciously or consciously seek out, I think, for somebody to hold on to, for somebody to love, even if that's for a short period of time, long period of time, whatever that is. And I would just really, 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 you know, wish for someone to hold me, whether that was or is my way of co-regulation. But, only after I started doing this work on father wounds and really diving deep into my own psyche, I had to come to realize how unhealthy that can be in terms of falling into the wrong relationships at times or ignoring red flags just because this is somebody that I liked or had a crush on and they're giving me attention and I like them and I find them attractive and I really want to experience the highs of, feeling like desired or feeling wanted or feeling like, oh, this person wants to be with me. And almost starting to have limerence or daydreaming that maybe they are the one. So
Yes.
subconsciously always looking for the one. And then
Yes.
I'm so like, it's overriding, you know, the fantasy of this person actually might be the one. And on top of that, oh my gosh, they're so attractive and they find me attractive. Like that's so exciting, and then starting to ignore a lot of red flags or not taking enough time to slow down and really sense how it feels in my body or
In the
take
body. Yep.
in the body or taking the time to actually see how they show up when it comes to conflict resolution. How do
Oh,
they deal?
huge.
That's a big one, right? How do
Yeah.
they deal with me, you know, stating what my boundaries are? But before I can do that, what are my boundaries anyway? And so that is
What a
when I was like,
big question to have to
what are
ask.
my boundaries?
Yeah.
What are my boundaries? What are my boundaries? I think people who have grown up with, traumatic events or are tend to fall into a lot of people-pleasing tendencies. What are our boundaries? When do we
What a
stop?
Yeah. What a big question. And I'm going to guess that about 50%, if not more, of my listeners right now are like, oh, holy shit, what are my boundaries? I didn't find out my boundaries until I was 33.
Hmm.
But before that, it was very, very similar to what you have mentioned. It was not for me like someone to hold me, but it was there for
Hmm.
someone to talk to me, for someone to hear me, for someone to spend
Hmm.
quality time with me.
Hmm.
And um and I yeah, it's you don't yeah, I was just jumping around, jumping around. It was like 6 months, 6 months. It just wouldn't work out. And it would always like hurt you in a different way. Each time it didn't, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Ignoring those red flags. And it finally came time where I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to be just by myself for a minute.
Hmm.
And then I was introduced to my future husband, and we stated
Oh,
our boundaries right out the gate because I figured
love
out
that.
my boundaries in that time when I was alone, which felt so, so scary. And then it was so, so revolutionary, game changing. And I
Yeah.
don't know how often people will give themselves some time just for you to figure out your boundaries are. So, my friends, there's your homework for this episode. What are your boundaries in relationships, in friendships,
Mhm.
and in sexual encounters? What are your boundaries?
In work too.
Yeah,
In
yes,
work
work
too.
relationship. Ooh, especially
The
with my
the other
overgivers.
day, yes, the other day, one of my coworkers was just having a bad day and, she was asking me to do some tasks and then she ended up swearing at me.
Oh,
She she ended up swearing at me and I was like, okay. Um, I instantly, because I have been trying to drop into my body more and realize what was going on, I instantly froze. And the next thing that happened was I could sense my inner child starting to come out and I could feel like I'm about to cry. Like it just felt like, oh my gosh, what do I do? Like it just was so overpowering, that emotion. Like she just swore at me. And obviously I had to stay composed and I instantly like envisioned that okay, there is the adult Sarzana, then there is the little Sarzana, and I'm like the adult Sarzana is like like just kneeling and looking at the little Sarzana into the eye and like I'm sorry, I know you're feeling hurt, I know this was awful. She shouldn't have said that. She really shouldn't have said that. That's not okay. That's nobody should ever talk to you like this. And then I took a deep breath, and after 15 minutes, I actually went up to her and I said, "Please don't swear at me again." And she looked at me and she said, okay. And we didn't talk about it. Um, and in that moment, I felt, oh my gosh, did I just set a boundary? I just
you
set a
did.
boundary.
And then
Please.
adult Sarzana and child Sarzana are both cheering for you. That is
There we go.
fantastic.
There we
Fantastic.
go. There we go.
Yeah, I don't know how many people will really look at it. Okay, what part of me is reacting inside? There's not a lot of
Mm-hmm.
people who want to do the inner child work or to even speak to their child on a daily basis.
Mm-hmm.
And the inner child is the one that reacts first. Okay, that's in the body. And
Yes.
then the brain, the rational brain comes online 15 to 20 minutes later when the adrenaline rises back down to
Yes.
baseline in our bodies. And that is
Yes.
so interesting. I do the same thing. I'm like, who is upset inside? What age
Mm-hmm.
Lauren is pissed right now? Is she sad? What
Mm-hmm.
does she need? And really grounding yourself is so important. Very important. Wow. Thank you for sharing.
Of course.
That was awesome. I love it. I love that we're just completely off script and going all over the place. All right, so I got like two more questions. What do you think?
Sure. Make it three. It's my
Yes.
favorite
Okay.
number.
Three is my favorite number. Get out of here.
No, I love the number three. It's my life path number two. So,
Me too. I love that. Wow. All right. So let's see. Do you think society's views on sex are becoming more open, or do we still have some work to do?
I think it is becoming more open for sure, but is it becoming more trauma informed?
Absolutely not. Maybe just a little, but we can help that, can't we?
Of course. Of course. Of course.
I know trauma is really left out of the conversation very, very often. Hmm, that's a little golden nugget for everybody to think about. Just know that it is more prevalent than you may be willing to admit or see at this time, and that is totally okay. All
Yeah.
right, next question. If you could go back and give your younger self one piece of advice about sex, love, or relationships, what would it be?
You don't have to say yes to sex just because you're worried you're going to lose out on love.
Mm,
That's what I would say. You don't
I
need
love it.
to earn love through sex.
All right. And that actually ties into the next question I was going to ask you, which is what piece of advice or mantra keeps you grounded in your own love life? And I think that could possibly be the same answer.
Yeah, yeah, safety. I think, after some very turbulent relationships where all sorts of safety were thrown out the window, and not just like from people I was with, but also not knowing what safety means to me, not knowing what safe actually feels like, and being able to assert and claim safety and actually say that this is what I deserve. And in unsafe situations, recognizing that no, this is not what I deserve. Like, no, no, like I am not going to allow myself to stay in unsafe relationships. So, you know, all of those different layers has made me come to this realization that safety, 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 psychological safety, sexual safety, emotional safety, all sorts of safety. Um, and a part of me sometimes, well, not a part of me, like I know a lot of the times, relational dynamics like BDSM or the kinks. I think one of the reasons why, and I'm sure like, this is something everybody knows, that it can be so pleasurable and kinky and really hot and steamy because of the aspect of safety involved. What's the
Yes.
safe word? Right? The safety, how do you feel, like green flag, red flag, or whatever, all the other terms that
Yeah.
there are. And you ensure that everybody is just feeling safe in your body. And I think sometimes people need that sense of emotional safety to feel safe in their body, demisexuals. You need to have that mental safety, that safety in your nervous system to really open up. So I would say safety.
Safety and being able to claim more pleasure with that safety present is
Yes.
such a big gift, something to truly strive for. And I think those boundaries that we spoke about, once you figure out what those are, making sure they're
Hmm.
there, making sure you have your little guardrails, that is a
Hmm.
thing. People in these BDSM relationships are so pleasure filled, but they are
Hmm.
so safety conscious, which is
Yeah.
makes the brain comfortable so the body can
Yeah.
even be more comfortable, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Do I feel safe with this person to say I want more? Do I feel
Mm.
safe to kn do I feel safe enough to ask that while knowing that they will give me more, right? Do I feel safe telling this person that I need a break or to stop for now? If I say let's stop for now, will they be pissed? Will they be upset? And I think it is also important for me to mention that as much as safety, should be a requirement in relationships, I think we need to also take a step back and wonder how we can also provide safety in these spaces. And so for me, it's not just about my partner trying to give me safety. It's like, okay, how can I be a safe person for you? And I think, that is where my answer to your first question about being more open, in our conversations or approach to sex, but how trauma informed are we? How much are we prioritizing that sense of safety, mutual safety?
Absolutely. And as you were speaking, I did write down a couple of titles for what our podcast episode will be called. And
Please.
I have I claim sexual safety.
I love
Right?
that.
That is a good full body. Mm.
I love that. I love that. That is it. That is it. That foundationally, that's it. Like you have
That
that
really
safety.
is.
Sky's the limit. Sky is the limit from there. Oh my gosh. Here we go. There we go.
I forget what number question we were on, but I'm going to ask you one more and we're going to
Please.
close it out and you can let people know how to keep in contact with you and get in touch, especially if
Yes.
they're looking for an incredible guide and mentor,
Thank
if they're
you.
feeling called to you during this podcast episode. All
Yes,
right.
please.
Last question. If there was a class on relationships, what is one topic you think should be mandatory?
Class on relationships. What is one topic that I feel should be mandatory? Damn, putting me on the spot here,
I
Lauren.
know, right? Like,
So,
is it boundaries? It's like, is it boundaries? How to create safety? Because that's honestly the resounding what we've been chatting about this whole time.
I I would say safety, but I feel like that has so many branches too because, we can talk about, what are my boundaries? That's important for us to know about safety. What are my trauma responses and when do they show up? Because those are going to show me where my boundaries are being crossed. And when we also talk about safety, it comes down to, okay, when it comes to relationships or different types of people or different personalities of people, what are some of the red flags that I need to look out for? Because that's safety too. What red flags should I watch out for? What kind of, danger should I watch out for? Like, there are obviously it's a very hot topic now when it comes to narcissistic tendencies, the love bombing, the idealization, and then the discard. So when you're being really love bombed, especially with somebody with, adverse childhood experiences and, father wounds, we have been deprived of that love and safety. That love bombing experience can feel very
Really
heavenly,
good.
really good and safe.
Yeah.
They make you feel high up on the clouds. But, being able to recognize, is this safe? Is this actually safe? So I would say safety, yeah, but that can have so many branches down. When we talk about attachment styles as well,
Oh my
in terms
goodness.
of safety, like, okay, is this dynamic really triggering my anxious attachment style or my avoidant attachment style? What does it mean to be safe and secure? I think I would go with, what does it mean to be safe and secure in relationships? That's what I would go for.
I like it because it's gonna differ from person to person, especially dependent on their attachment styles.
Yeah,
Another fascinating thing, yes, in our world, right, of all this incredible knowledge and theories, the attachment styles play a very, very big role on what feels
yeah,
safe. That is
yeah,
huge. Wow. What some incredible, incredible answers. Thank you so much for
of
seriously giving
course.
your time so willingly to us and just bearing your soul with your stories. I can't tell you how much it just absolutely impacted me, especially as an empath. Like, this was
Thank you.
fantastic. Thank you so,
Thank
so
you.
much.
Thank you.
How
Thank
can
you
I?
for having
Yeah.
me. Thank you for creating the space to allow me to share my stories. Like, I live for that kind of shit. Like, please, like, I want to offer it. And then when somebody else offers it to me, like you did, it is very impactful for me. And I think these are the moments when I feel, let me try to be a human right now instead of trying to be a host or a coach. Like, this is what's allowing me to be a human and a person. So thank you for doing that.
You're welcome. And that's the thing when you're not trying to run anything, you just get to be you.
Mm-hmm.
And that is the best
Mm-hmm.
version anybody could see of you
Mm-hmm.
to be able to be like, okay, I definitely need to work with her. Look how real she was. That's a big deal. That's a
Thank
big
you,
deal.
Lauren.
Of
Thank
course.
you.
Can you let our friends know how they can keep in contact with you with your work?
Yeah, so very easy actually. You can actually follow me on Instagram. My handle is at Sarzana Hasin Safar. Um, I know it's a big name, but my middle name is actually my mom's first name, and I don't want to leave her out. After everything
That
she's
is
been through,
sweet.
but people can also email me, which is, and again, another easy email, a little long, the daughter with daddy issues at gmail.com. So the daughter with daddy issues at gmail.com. So people can
Perfect.
always reach out to me through email as well. And yeah, I'm looking forward to this, and I'm looking forward to, hoping to see how people resonate with this episode of ours.
Absolutely. I mean, this was a pretty deep, heavy, and beautiful conversation.
Mhm.
I'm going to link both of those contact pieces for you down in the show notes for everybody to listen. So thank you so much, and we'll talk
Thank
soon.
you.
Bye for
Thank you,
now.
Lauren. Bye.